Hey, so I'm going to do another kind of time-lapse narration video because once again, I figured it was more useful for me to just kind of jam out on this for a bit and work through some punctuation. There are some things here that I'm doing that I've kind of touched on in other videos, especially in this sort of series. If you look closely, you'll be able to see that I'm doing things like using the transformation tool, like the bounding box, and like holding option to scale things symmetrically. I find that super useful. I was also fixing up the light along with the regular and black styles. And a lot of what I was doing too was kind of starting to explore again the basic sizing of essentially the dots in the punctuation. So, like the period, comma, semicolon. Um, I still have to do that for the quote marks. They're like at a place that is decent, but um, I'm still not sure about their sort of relationship to, say, the comma and how they fill up their space just yet. But that'll come pretty soon, I think. And they look solid, if not perfect. Um, yeah, doing things like aligning question marks and question down and exclamation points and exclam down. And yeah, the question mark is a little funny, especially in the black style, because I'm keeping that dot sort of upright, kind of in keeping with the vertical horizontal endings, and like say upright dots on the eye and things. So I don't know. It's possible I'll have to somehow shift the question mark design a little bit to work well with that. I'm not quite decided on it so far. But that's type design. Sometimes you got to let things sort of incubate or sort of bounce around in your head for a while, test them out, see how they feel over time, and then you can find the right solution. So, yeah, here you're just seeing me doing some basic fixes to the light, and then here I am, trying to dial in a better guess again for sort of the sizing of punctuation that felt balanced across itself, at least internally. Um, and yeah, this will take more testing and more using the font to sort of really figure out what feels right. Um, usually monospace fonts have pretty oversized punctuation, so that it, really stands out in code. For one thing, you really want to make sure if there's a punctuation mark that you're seeing exactly what it is without any trouble whatsoever, any ambiguity. It's also got to fill as much space as every letter does because it's fixed width. So naturally, it makes sense to make it bigger. But at the same time, I don't want it to necessarily be comically large. And in the black, for instance, I don't think I want, I don't know yet, I don't want the comma to look a lot taller than, say, the like bottom part of a semicolon. Um, but I'm not necessarily sure about that decision just yet. I just think that probably those things usually relate, and so they should probably still relate here. But I don't know. I feel like it could kind of go either way, and yeah, it's just going to be a process of experimentation. And yeah, here I'm also testing out like a number sign where sort of the edges line up vertically. It feels like it makes sense in the context of uh, a monospace, whereas maybe it doesn't as much when you have a little more room for it in a proportional font, or usually you'd give more room to it. So there you can see the black colon and semicolon were really wide at first. Um, the ampersand is a really tricky character actually to fit into a monospace because like you've actually got to fit quite a bit of curvature in there into a fairly narrow, relatively narrow space, especially for a bold ampersand. Um, I guess one thing I haven't tried yet would be a totally different form of ampersand. This is one of those things where I guess the first thing I'm trying is a way that like relates pretty closely to the visual styling of the ampersand in name sans. Though I am simplifying kind of the right kick out leg to it to kind of make it a little more part of this monospace where things are a little more like brutalist or simplified in various ways. So, like the italic lowercase k, for instance, has a leg that kicks out, and this is kind of relating to that a little bit. Um, yeah, I don't know. Well, an ampersand is one of those glyphs that you probably never hit on the first couple of tries in a typeface. And yeah, so this is a draft, and I do like how it looks a lot, especially I think this regular version is pretty appealing. So I don't know. It's a solid thing to start with, and I'm sure I will probably revisit it. So apologies if you were enjoying the dark mode there. That was some work done in the evening, and here it's the middle of the day, so light mode made a lot more sense. And basically, this portion of the work was me working on the numerals. These started as the tabular numerals in name sans, but they were a little wider than like the lowercase n and o. So like the capitals, they have to be somewhat condensed and made just a little lighter too, I think. The the lightness, I may have to do a second pass to kind of dial that in. I think that, yeah, in this workflow, I was more concentrating on sort of the overall look of them and kind of condensing them than I was focused on, say, trying to match the color or stroke weight appearance of the uppercase or lowercase. So, yeah, I think looking at it again is kind of useful. And I think perhaps like that two is a little bold. Probably, yeah, I'll probably go in and just like slightly lighten up these curves. But at the same time, numerals are like sort of a different system from the rest of the typeface. So, um, yeah, I don't think it's, I mean, that, yeah, I will go and lighten it because, like, looking at that five, you can really see that the strokes are just like noticeably thicker than, say, the H next to it. So that's not quite, I don't think, ideal. So I'll go back through and do another pass at these for sure. But yeah, it is fun to see them coming together. Like right. I'm glad I'm doing kind of a related but divergent style for this mono. Um, Name Sans was like a long process of kind of taking lots of ideas, some of which were kind of like old school and some of which were sort of trendy. These terms both kind of are terrible, I would say, for typefaces, but you probably maybe know what I mean. I don't know. Some of them were responding to old typefaces and some of them were responding to newer typefaces and ideas I was just playing with. So I'm allowing myself to do the sort of newer ideas a little more with the mono. And yeah, that's probably old news to you if you have been following along in the series. But yeah, here I'm just fixing up the math symbols in a pretty basic way. Seeing this again is helpful because I'm realizing like, oh, I wasn't even actually like giving things the sort of vertical terminations that I've been giving the rest of the italics. So I'm going to have to go back and clean that up as well. But, for now, I kind of just need the math symbols in a basic way for use in like day-to-day code. And like these things incidentally are popping up in my web design, like the plus, for instance, or the percent sign, I think may show up at some point. So yeah, I needed to fix them. And I guess that's another one of my next steps. And in fact, yeah, I think that probably my next video on this monospace typeface may be kind of my last in the series, at least for a little while. I'm gonna move into a like more focused mode of working on kind of the final touches for Name Sans before an imminent release here, and my website as well to support that release. And yeah, I'm really glad that I've kind of had the chance to work on a mono companion to it. Partly, it's just like a helpful way to take one more perspective on the bigger project named Sans and kind of explore how I feel about it and like what's maybe worth taking another final look at. And then also like where am I going in the future? It's every time I'm about to finish a big project, I sort of have this like terror almost. That might be a very dramatic way to put it, but just uncertainty, I guess, about like what's next. Um, I've been doing lots of other things like along the way of Name Sans, but still, it feels a bit like I don't know, like a grad project or something, a thesis project where, um, yeah, whenever I've been about to graduate from some segment of school, I think like, is there a job on the other side of this? Is there something I'll find to apply myself to? And there, thankfully, always has been. Um, and I think particularly in this case, I really just need to get it out the door. And I'm really proud of what it is. And I think it's, yeah, I don't know. I hope it will lead to new opportunities. Um, but yeah, type design is also something that feels like a bit of a gamble still. And yeah, fingers crossed that everything comes together. Anyway, I'm also super grateful that I can work on shapes and letter forms. And yeah, I hope that if you've been following along with this series, you're getting to explore shapes and letter forms as well. It's a really kind of slow but gratifying process, like many creative pursuits. So yeah, thanks for watching. Leave a comment if you feel one way or the other about these kind of time-lapse narration videos. I don't know that I will let comments dictate what I am doing, but it's always useful to get feedback. Um, I think it's useful for me certainly to actually do this, just to like have one more way of sort of getting to re-see and rethink through my decisions, and catch things faster than I might if I like waited a while and proofed it later. Uh, so I don't know. Maybe YouTube proofing is the next frontier in type design. I don't know. But yeah, hope if you're working on a creative project, it's going great. And I hope you have a great day. Thanks a lot.